You will not understand your data. You will not know what to do with your data. You will not optimize your supply chain or your P&L. D2C is a full business, right?
Yes.
I'm running a store.
Yes.
And not just a conversion on a website.
We've been bringing you stories about startups and mid-segment businesses, but today we talk to you about an age-old business, a company that's been around for about 80 years now, but is reinventing how businesses are done in the D2C space. Talking to us about this interesting topic today is Sabrina Würfel, the head of direct-to-consumer business at Samsung Gulf. Welcome to the show, Sabrina.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a nice introduction.
Thank you. We've been wanting to talk to you for a while now, Sabrina. So Retail Remix Story started off with one clear vision of bringing stories of inspiring leaders to the region so that, when listeners and viewers get inspired by the person they are listening to. Most of our stories start with the early days of the person we are talking to. So would love to learn more about you from your childhood days, etc. Where were you born? Where did you grow up? What did you do in your early days?
Okay, so I'm German. Würfel, very complicated last name. Funny enough, it means dice, like the dice to play.
Nice. Okay, wow.
So it has a nice meaning.
Are you all in? Does it mean the winning dice or?
I think so.
Okay.
You need to ask my boss, but I think it's the winning dice. I'm not a gambler though. In my early days, childhood, I was a semi-professional figure skater, actually. Wow. So I grew up spending my days on the ice ring at 6 a.m. on the weekends and training a lot and doing competitions and so on. And then I ended up not really knowing who I wanted to be when I grow up.
Like all of us.
Yeah, not a professional figure skater. At some point, I got too tall for that dream. So I ended up in university doing political science and media studies, thinking that I would be a PR manager. And during my first internship that I did during my bachelor, I was in an e-commerce agency back in the early 2000s. So,
wow, that's early days.
Yeah, very early days. And they had a very interesting project that they put me on for a second-hand car dealer. They were building a community. So my main job during that time was to answer questions about cars and how to repair cars.
Nice.
And to post questions about that.
Oh, wow.
Because they understood that having a community will actually bring them traffic and ultimately sales.
This is early days, right?
Very early days. That was like 2006, 2007. And I did that as a student job for a long, long time to finance a little bit my education. And then I wrote my bachelor thesis about how Obama used social media to fund his campaign.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because I had to combine media studies and political science. And funny enough, that brought me into social media.
Sorry, I just want to go back to that story of, when you were doing the social media for the car company.
Yeah.
This was before iPhone, right?
This was before anything, yes.
So what is that process like? For our young listeners, they probably want to know what the world was like.
What the world was like. For me, the world was an Excel spreadsheet with different account names and logins where I had questions and answers. A lot of it I didn't understand because I cannot repair your Golf 5 turbo whatever engine.
Right.
But it was really, it was fascinating to see how people behind laptops back then and dial-in internet were debating passionately about the best way to tune cars and where to meet and where to go and where to buy parts and how to upgrade and which car would be the next upgrade and how that community built in the end a full marketplace.
Wow.
Where our client then started actually achieving sales results. So that was quite fascinating.
Lovely.
Yeah. That was early days. Then, as I said, I wrote my bachelor thesis about social media. Funny enough, I was not raised to have social media because my parents always told me, you don't need 10 best friends, you don't need to make your private life official. Facebook was not yet a thing also in Germany. We had our own German version of Facebook.
Right.
Which I did not use because for me it was like, why would I tell the world what I'm doing? but I wrote my bachelor thesis about it. And again, I was fascinated by how this can also be used to fund, in that case, a campaign. And that was kind of how I slowly started going into the digital direction. Then going on to agency side, I did a lot of email and social marketing for a long time. And at some point, I think what happens to many people who are young and in agencies, I was like, I'm pitching these ideas to clients and then they have their own thoughts and they never do what I want them to do. I want to be on the client side. And I ended up in hospitality.
Hospitality. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Super unexpected, and that your reaction was exactly the reaction of the people who were working in my hotels. I had two flagship properties of a very well-known German brand. I was the first e-commerce person in the hotel.
Wow.
So my boss used to call me the girl who does the internet. I was very lucky that the GM of the hotel was actually previously, he lived in UAE. He had just come back to Europe.
Okay. And
he was already living a bit more in the future when it came to digital. He understood pay-per-click campaigns, and he was asking me about KPIs and conversion rates and TripAdvisor and NPS scores, and he was like very, very into it, which was great. And hospitality taught me a lot because you're selling a non-physical product online. At the same time, you learn that what a customer experience can be like.
Yes.
And how that is shaped every day, and what frictionless means, and what relevant means, and what understanding needs before they're spoken means. And my best hospitality stories are offline, but they heavily translated to what I was doing. I remember my first week during onboarding the head of housekeeping. I went to her and said, listen, I never worked in a hotel. I want to understand how things operate behind the scenes. I'm meant to do also social content. So I'm going to come to you and ask you to put like a towel swan on the bed for the romantic package. And she looked at me. She was a very, very lovely lady with much more life experience than me and said, towel swans are very 80s. We don't do this. This is a 5-star hotel. This is, it's a no. And I'm like, but this will work very nicely on social, right? She was like, I don't believe you. Then she did a very nice setup for me. We did one with a swan and one how she perceived it.
A/B
testing on social. She was right.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think what she knew, what I didn't know, is who are the actual guests in this hotel.
Domain knowledge, right?
Yeah, so she really knew who were the people coming to this hotel and what they were expecting, and that 1980s swan towels were not it. So to be quite frank, it taught me a lot about anticipating consumer or guest needs. It taught me a lot about the value of word of mouth, of feedback, and also about how you work as a team, because the entire operation is heavily dependent on every individual. So it was a good school. And at some point, I got a call that said, Sabrina, we have this job in Abu Dhabi for some hospitality group. You don't want to come? They want an e-commerce manager. You've been doing this. I was like, yeah, let's do an interview. Where is Abu Dhabi? Why not? Let's do it.
Where is Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, very European, very ignorant.
And sorry, in the hotel, most of your guests were international guests, or these were guests within Germany?
No, it was very international, actually. We had, it was... the building is over 200 years old. It's one of the biggest flagships in my hometown. You had big celebrities staying there, Pavarotti, the Pope, very, very international. We had a Michelin star restaurant in the property.
Wow.
So one of my social missions was also to convince the chef to do behind the scenes.
Wow.
And that would be great content. And he was like, but the magic is that they don't know. I'm like, no, the magic is for you to show some tricks, right?
Yeah.
That's what people want to see. So yeah, no, very international. And my director of business development was always telling me, we need to get more people from these specific countries. And on the internet, we can do this, no?
Yeah, right, okay.
You need to know how to manage this, how to attract these people. Where do we need to be? How do they come to our website? I was like, oh, maybe they won't, because our hotel name is very German, very long, and very complicated.
Wow, okay.
So, people are not necessarily searching for your hotel name plus city on Google. They're actually just going to an OTA or just Googling the city name and give me a 5-star hotel, right?
Right.
So it was an interesting time to manage both. Bit more of the digital marketing side, but also brand.com and the OTAs,
right?
And to see how they attract different customers and how can we kind of show the soul of the hotel to a customer on a website.
Right,
Mm-hmm. Right. We had a perfume, a signature smell in the hotel.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm. That was very important. But then how do you convey this on a website?
On the website, yeah.
Or on social media. How do you give that impression already before a guest arrives?
Right.
I didn't crack that one. You know, the book, The Perfume, very famous book. They also made a movie after this where it talks only about smells. I did not crack how to convey the smell, but I understood that our doorman was very famous and very, 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 very beloved by especially our loyal guests, and even guests who had not stayed yet, but who knew people who had stayed, knew his name before arriving. Right. He's a very tall, attractive young man with a big head and a very nice uniform. And he was famous in the city and famous for the hotel. So he was kind of a face of the hotel.
Oh, the hotel. Wow, okay.
So we used him a lot for content instead of trying to crack how to show the smell.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what a story. And then Abu Dhabi.
And then I did 2 stints in Abu Dhabi in hospitality. The first one more similar to what I did in Germany. The second one much heavier on the commerce side, much more revenue focused, more channel distribution, which was super interesting because you start to understand that the customer who you want and the customer who comes are not always necessarily the same. And you are not attracting them also on the same channels. We did a lot of the typical techniques of saying, okay, now it's 3 a.m. here, but it's 8 p.m. in another time zone. That's when these consumers booked. So we're going to do a flash sale that's only available for, I don't know, Southeast Asian countries on that platform where they're more likely to book. And this is the kind of inventory that we're going to give there because we specifically want families or whatever it is for this rate. So, yeah.
And personally, how was the move from Germany to the UAE?
It was fantastic. It was hot, though, because I arrived the 3rd day of Ramadan in June back then. Okay. So, in 2015. Wow. So, I landed and I walked into summer. And it was Ramadan. So it was obviously very, very different. And I said to myself before I moved, you can live anywhere for 1 year and just see how it is. During my university days, I lived in Spain, I lived in the UK, I lived in France. Right. So I was always a bit traveling and wandering around and trying to find my place, and I loved being abroad. So I was like, okay, I can do this 1 year, and if I really don't like it, then I go back. Right. No loss, right? Maybe I learn a little bit of Arabic, so I can add to my languages. And I think it took me like 2 days to know that I love it, and I'm most likely not gonna go back. I was very lucky to meet good people very early on who are still with me today, who also stayed here, who have their lives here, and to find a good infrastructure, and then also to grow my career further. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. And then how did that switch from hospitality to Samsung happen?
Another call. I was lucky. But I think just to go back to your question, one thing I realized is that in Europe, at that time, we were very focused on social and email marketing. Email marketing was like everything, and life cycle campaigns and fully automated. I had one of my clients in the agency side before was a very famous company that produces printers. And we had a fully automated life cycle campaign for them that would entice you to print for Valentine's Day and Halloween and whatever opportunity, because we were making money on the paper and the toner, not on the devices. And then after a certain, and how to use your device and when is it time to upgrade and these kind of things. And I remember I came to UAE and I was talking to my new manager in the hotel, and I was like, okay, so how is your email marketing? What are we doing? She's like, no one reads emails here. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, no. But please make some content for social, and then also the website, and then no. But email, not really. So that haunted me for a while. I was like, can't be, that doesn't work at all, right? Yeah. Because I was so convinced that it's a thing. Now I also have to say I'm my own worst customers. I get like 100 marketing emails a day. I don't open a single one of them.
Right.
But also I think I haven't been in a mall for 3 years. I buy everything online.
Right.
So I'm not my own customer. Right. And if I am, then I'm a nightmare customer to me. Right. But yeah. And then moving from hospitality to electronics, well, it was an interesting journey because I realized that I love the brand.com side a bit more than the OTA side.
Right.
It's fun to play with the pricing and the different availabilities and so on, but you're not fully in control. It felt a little bit like being in an agency. You only own that part of the journey. So I was very happy that I moved into a full D2C function. And it was interesting to go from an experience to a physical product, and a physical product that is actually technical and needs explanation and education to customers to convey why this phone is better than some competitor phone, or even the phone you own now that's maybe just a year or two old. And at the same time, back then Samsung just started direct to consumer here in the region. So it was baby shoes.
Right.
The world was our oyster, and we were trying to find our footing, right?
At this time, did Samsung have any other D2C sites that were successful globally, or was this like the first?
We already had in the US and in Europe that were established, but also just for a few years. Here we had a pure marketing website that we were trying to transform, and even on total company level, it was still in baby shoes. So we wanted to enter that space, and in the Middle East, I joined the date of S9 Unpacked, which was also the date where we launched the UAE Ecommerce website, where we transformed it. And not even 2 years later, we were mid-COVID, and we launched 8 countries in 8 months because it was the big boom and we were expanding. And if someone had told me that 2 years before that this is how it's going to go, I wouldn't have believed it.
Right.
So I think best decision.
Nice. Very inspiring. Very inspiring. And you touched upon this, but one of the questions that most people would come and ask you, Samsung is not a startup.
Yeah.
You're an 8-year-old organization with distribution across channels, right? And now within that, you're trying to build a niche D2C space. And there would be an equivalent of the perfume of the hotel that you're not able to accomplish, right? How do you manage this, and how do you navigate this entire ecosystem where you remain fair from a consumer point of view? At the same time, you have your own advantages of building the channel and the business.
Yeah. Well, multiple layers to it. I think one is generally, yes, we're trying to be fair across the channels. And obviously, as a company, we have more of a B2B background, so D2C for us was a bit new. And especially at that time, so we had to look at a lot of our processes and how do we adjust them, even the warehouse was meant to do big bulk shipments and not end consumer single unit shipments, right? So there's a lot of that. Just how do we operate a D2C business? Now, in terms of what do we offer, I think we found quite a nice balance to say we have great products. And we want them to be accessible as much as possible to as many people as possible. And we also understand that not every consumer is meant to buy on Samsung.com. Same as not every consumer will buy on Amazon, will not buy from some retailer, or will go to the mall. Right? So I think there's a person for each channel. But the ones who might be inclined to buy from us need to have some reason to buy directly from us.
Right.
So we have we obviously have a live chat with very well-trained agents. We have some exclusive models that you can only get on Samsung.com, right?
Right.
We try to offer you a better experience and service. We have a rewards program. So we touch on loyalty, though I think that points are not necessarily loyalty per se, or it's not. That's not all, right? People always think it's very emotional. I think loyalty is built through operations and every single touch point and interaction you have with the brand. So across these levels of service, sometimes differentiated products, which we have globally. That's not just in the Middle East. And then also after sales. Right. If you buy directly from the brand, the expectation is that if you buy it from us, the delivery and installation of your TV should be the best experience you can get, right? And the person who installs it for you and wall mounts it for you does it in the best possible way, right, and sets it up for you and can explain it to you and can answer your questions, recommend things, and is not just some delivery person who is not educated about the product. So it's someone who has knowledge. And then also if you have a question 5 days later, that there's someone who picks up the phone or answers your chat and can help you. And we built a lot of after-sales services also on Samsung.com, from screen replacements to cleaning your washing machine filters, AC, and so on, because these come with buying our products. So having that aspect, I think, on a brand website is quite relevant to consumers.
Right. And you also do this across countries, right? So part of Gulf would be, and each market is very different.
Yes.
So how do you kind of look at localization per se, or do you keep everything?
No. Yes and no. So I feel it's something I had to learn. So when I first came to UAE, I had to learn UAE customers and international customers at the same time, because the concept of staycation in Europe is in the same country is not very common. Like in Germany, yes, you can go on summer holidays to like the mountains or the sea, if we have a sea in Germany, but fine. But the staycation concept that we have here is foreign, right? So domestic tourism in Germany is much less in that way. So to learn the local consumers and then also the international ones, and by international, not necessarily the Europeans, but also broader Gulf and total Middle East, was also something. And to understand that a person in Jordan has different considerations and a different journey and a different thinking to someone from Saudi was something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning. I feel every day, even after 12 years and working for many years on the region. So I think our aim is that wherever you buy from Samsung.com, no matter which country, your experience is the same.
Is the same.
So, but we still understand that your need might be different, right? So when we look at payment, for example, first of all, the infrastructure is different, but also the living reality of people is different. So we had a time where we were very heavily focused on pushing certain payment methods or like reducing others, and where also we had global initiatives to go for specific wallets, and I was like, that's not the reality of people here. It's not going to work. Like we can build it,
right?
Not a problem. We can integrate it. It's not going to be used. But you know what's going to be used is that thing that is happening here locally, that people know about, that people want to use. So I think everyone should have the same experience no matter where they buy, ideally. The product that you physically buy should be, obviously, has the same quality.
Right.
But there is still a need to tailor, just on a country level. Not to talk about personalizing, which is then next step.
Next step, okay. Yeah. So I think you've built this grounds up, literally, right? But now with the advent of AI and everything that's happening, if you were to like look at your future self in 5 years from now, what does this world look like?
Oh, the 5 years question. It's like a real interview. Well, I don't have the answer. If I had the answer, I think I would not be sitting here. But so from a Samsung perspective, I have to say, so we are really, for the past 2 years, have been heavily working on democratizing AI, right? It's built in all of our products. We're trying to show consumers the value of it, and to really make it accessible. If I sell a product that is heavily focused on democratizing AI, no matter if it's a phone or a TV or whatever it is, me as a person also need to become a user. Right? Not just of my own product, but also of AI. And I need to understand the value it adds and also where it might have limitations. So I understand everyone is talking about AI, and I think there's great use cases. I recently listened to the All In podcast. Do you listen to the All In podcast? Where they were discussing the Agent Maestro.
Right.
And I really loved that.
Right.
Because it's very close to how I feel about it. I still feel, and I saw this many times also while we were growing, if you don't have people who understand your processes properly, in detail, and can explain them, you will not develop your platform.
Right.
You will not develop your marketing. You will not understand your data. You will not know what to do with your data. You will not optimize your supply chain or your P&L. You need to. D2C is a full business, right?
Yes.
I'm running a store.
Yes.
And not just a conversion on a website. If you look at it that way, then... So this Agent Maestro, the image of the Agent Maestro actually spoke to me a lot, because I still feel, yes, AI can do so many things for us, but we need to also... You need a little bit of a human element to understand who trains the agents, where can they help us run certain things faster, better, more efficiently than us? And where do we still need human interaction to make sure that at the end of the day, we're also selling to humans, right? That certain aspects are still just taken care of. So where will we be in 5 years? I hope in a world where personalization does not mean that when I log into my account, it says, "Hi, Sabrina," and someone tells me, "Oh, it's fully personalized." Ideally, it's my homepage is different to yours. My email looks different to yours. Yes. It starts from my first click before and not from my first purchase.
Right.
Data silos don't exist, and we stop thinking that e-commerce means just driving a conversion on a website, but understand that this is it's a business, end to end, and finance, logistics, supply chain are not supporting functions. They're part of the store.
Right.
They need to be orchestrated. They need to all work together. Same like in a hotel.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No chef, no room service. And so I don't know where we will be in 5 years. I will hopefully be smarter than today. And but yeah.
Yeah, I think very rare to come across somebody who says, I don't know where you'll be in 5 years. Most of the times I get answers, which are pretty straightforward, but I think it's great to kind of also acknowledge where we are from a learning perspective. I think at Fynd, what we're doing is actually helping organizations implement AI, because everyone's either building frontier AI, but we're kind of implementing frontier AI. So that's really how we are seeing it.
No.
But I think great answer. This is one of the best answers to what's going to happen in 5 years that I've heard. I think towards the end of this, right, going back to the personal side of things, what's been your toughest decision to make in the last 1 year or so? Because now we're going through this churn, right? Because a lot of things changing on the go. So where does Sabrina lose sleep?
I mostly lose sleep over my team members. And
interesting.
Not just the past year, in general, not because they're not great, they are all great. And I was very, very lucky with many people I worked with, and also leaders I learned from. But I lose sleep over how well am I enabling my team? Am I zooming in and out enough? I feel the people I admire the most are the ones who zoom in and out, who have still a deep understanding of the nitty-gritty, but who also see bigger picture and who are able to give you direction and insight, and still allow you to be the expert. So when I feel like I'm not treating my team like the expert they are, then I lose sleep over it.
Right.
Because I feel my job is to enable them, to empower them, to give them framework, to steer them in the right direction, but to also trust them, right? That it's the unwritten rule in my team. If you ask anyone, what's the one rule in Sabrina's teams, I think all of them during my career, is if you come to me with a problem, you also have to come with 3 solutions, and you need to tell me which one is the best as per your recommendation and why. And then we decide together. Because I don't believe that I should have all the answers. I'm working with experts, and I lose sleep over the fact that sometimes I feel like I should know all these details, and at some point it becomes impossible to be the expert of everything. So I'm like, okay, how do I let go, but not too much? How am I still involved? How do I give enough time to each area? And how do I make sure that they have an environment where they can also work together without much friction? Yeah.
Nice. Is there a book that you read recently that kind of resonates with?
I recently, no. Nothing business related, unfortunately. I'm a big audiobook person.
Nice.
So I was, when I was younger, I was reading, but now I'm podcasts and audiobooks all the time. So I recently listened to a German book, which was not the usual, but I did from a young author that is about the perception of women on social media. And it's called How Can She? And it's about all the things that women are perceived at, or what we do to be who we are, or not to be who we are sometimes, which was quite interesting. She's a tad younger than me, so her perspective was quite refreshing, and it was interesting to see that social lens of someone growing up. I don't know if you work with younger generations. It's also sometimes you need to learn how still be in touch with how they operate and how they navigate and how they need to be led. So it was a good insight into how the younger generation functions.
I think in our team the joke is I'm responsible for the average age of the team going up, because most folks at Fynd are probably in their late 20s, early 30s at the most. So it's a young team, definitely. And you're right, they're so mature, they know so much more.
Yeah.
And I always get inspired learning from them, right? So I think, great. One more thing that was on my mind to ask you was, you wanted to do figure skating, but is there anything else that you do that's similar? Do you do sports? Do you?
Yeah, so I'm the very typical Dubai girl, if you want. I go to Reformer Pilates. I walk my puppy, and I do some yoga at home. Not as much as I should, based on how much I sit in front of a screen. But yeah, so lots of dog walks, and then the typical paddle here and there, but I'm not very good. But yeah, so.
Amazing. So a well-rounded, approach to life and living. So
I try.
amazing.
Get a dog. It helps.
Oh yeah, I'd love to get a dog. Earlier my mom hated having a dog at home, and my wife is extremely petrified of dogs. She would cross the road and go to the other side if she sees a pup.
Yeah.
I tried getting dogs twice, once in childhood, once after getting married, and both times I was asked to leave the house. So,
Okay, you can come visit my puppy anytime.
Thank you.
But it's a great lesson in taking care of someone, being responsible, nurturing, and lots of fresh air.
Lots of fresh air.
And silliness, also silliness.
Yes.
Which is nice.
Yes.
Lightheartedness.
Yeah.
Small things. Celebrate the small things.
Yeah. Amazing. Great. And I think we're at the end of the entire session. Where can our listeners follow you?
Nowhere. No, the funny thing, I'm still very the same way that I was raised. I'm barely on social media. I deleted Facebook after I stopped doing social media marketing myself and didn't need an account anymore. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course. But yeah. And in the dog park.
In the dog park.
You can follow me in the dog park.
Amazing. That's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Sabrina, for taking time out.
Thank you so much.
It's so much fun talking to you. I think very refreshing.
Thank you.
Your worldviews are very, very transparent and at the same time very encouraging, right? So I hope our listeners today take back that it's all right to say you don't know. And you are growing along with how things are coming up. It's a very fast changing environment. But kudos to you for this entire journey of moving from Germany to Abu Dhabi to Dubai, and then making the contributions you're making to not just the brand but also to retail at large, right? I've seen you at conferences, etc. You're a great contributor to conversations always. I hope our listeners really enjoy this episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's it from us today. Thank you very much for following, liking us as always. To follow Fynd, look us up at www.fynd.com. It's Fynd spelled with a Y. When you go to the website, you'll know why it's spelled with a Y, because we ask you why not. And we look forward to seeing you the next time. Until then, stay safe, stay happy and cheerful.